He was just a janitor blowing bubbles to calm a panicking girl in the school hallway. What he didn't know, the girl's mother was a witch queen from another realm, watching through a magical mirror. And she just decided he was the only one who could save both their worlds. Mark Shen had exactly 12 minutes before the night shift officially started, and he'd already scrubbed 3 classrooms worth of gum off desks. The Monday afternoon sun slanted through the hallway windows of Riverside Middle School, painting everything gold, which meant he could see every speck of dust he'd missed. He was pushing his janitor's cart past room 214 when the screaming started. Not the usual middle school drama screaming. This was different. Raw. Terrified. The classroom door burst open and students poured out like water from a broken dam, shoving each other, some crying, all running. Mark barely had time to press his cart against the lockers before they stampeded past him. "What's going on?" he called out, but they didn't stop. Then he saw her. A girl, maybe 11, dark curly hair, school uniform, stood frozen in the exact center of the hallway. Her arms were locked at her sides, fists clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. She was shaking. No, trembling. Her whole body vibrated like a tuning fork, and the lights above her were flickering. Not the normal flicker of old fluorescence. These pulsed in rhythm with her breathing, fast, shallow, panicked. The metal lockers near her rattled softly. Mark's stomach dropped. He'd seen panic attacks before. His daughter Lily had them sometimes, triggered by crowds or sudden noises. This looked worse. He glanced toward the main office. The weekly staff meeting. Every teacher, counselor, and administrator crammed into one room arguing about the new lunch schedule. He could hear their muffled voices through the walls. No help coming. The girl's breathing hitched higher. A fluorescent tube above her exploded in a shower of glass. She flinched but didn't move, didn't run. Just stood there, trapped inside her own fear. Mark made a decision. He walked toward her slowly, hands visible, making himself as non-threatening as possible. He'd learned this with Lily. Sudden movements made everything worse. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm Mark. I'm just the janitor." The girl's eyes darted to him but didn't focus. Her pupils were dilated, her face pale and slick with sweat. Another light fixture popped. Then another. Mark's heart hammered, but he kept his voice steady. "I know it feels scary right now. I know everything feels too loud and too much. But you're okay. You're safe." She wasn't listening. Couldn't listen. He recognized that look. His daughter got the same one, like she'd fallen down a well and couldn't hear anything from the surface. His cart was 3 feet away. On the bottom shelf, next to the spare trash bags and the industrial cleaner, sat a small bottle of bubble solution. He'd bought it last month for Lily, kept it in his supplies for rough days. Sometimes when she spiraled at home, bubbles helped. Something about watching them float, the slow, steady movement, could pull her back from the edge. Worth a shot. Mark unscrewed the cap and pulled out the wand. He dipped it, lifted it to his lips, and blew. A stream of bubbles floated toward the girl, catching the afternoon light. Iridescent spheres drifting lazy and slow through the flickering hallway. Her eyes tracked one, then another. Mark blew more bubbles, keeping his movements gentle and rhythmic. He didn't speak, didn't rush her, just kept creating those small, floating worlds. The girl's breathing slowed, just a fraction. He blew another stream. The rattling lockers quieted. The lights stopped flickering. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. Mark kept going, one breath at a time, until the girl's fists unclenched and her knees buckled. She sat down hard on the linoleum floor, gasping like she'd been underwater. He crouched down a few feet away, still blowing bubbles. "There you go. That's it. Just breathe." She watched the bubbles with an intensity that seemed almost hungry. One drifted close to her face, and she reached out, popping it gently with one finger. The corner of her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "I'm Aria," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse. "Nice to meet you, Aria." Mark set down the bubble wand and pulled a clean cloth from his cart, offering it to her. You did good. That was really scary, but you made it through. She took the cloth and pressed it to her face. Everyone ran away from me. They were scared. They didn't understand what was happening. That doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. Arya looked at him then, really looked, and Mark saw something ancient in her eyes. Something that made the hair on his arms stand up. But then she blinked and she was just a kid again, exhausted and embarrassed and small. Can I keep this? She pointed to the bubble wand.
Sure.
All yours. She clutched it like a lifeline. Mark didn't see the bracelet on her wrist start to glow. Didn't notice the tiny shard of mirror embedded in the silver catching light that shouldn't exist. Didn't know that in another realm entirely, a queen had just stopped breathing. He just helped Arya to her feet and walked her to the nurse's office, talking quietly about nothing important. The weather, the weird smell in the science lab, his daughter's obsession with origami. Normal things. Human things. Behind them, the hallway looked perfectly ordinary. The shattered light fixtures would be tomorrow's problem. The lockers sat silent and still. But in the empty air where the bubbles had floated, something shimmered for just a moment, like reality itself had grown thin. Then it was gone. The crystal scrying chamber existed in a place where geometry didn't quite work the way it should. Walls curved upward into impossible arches, and the floor reflected a sky that belonged to no earthly night. Clusters of raw crystals jutted from every surface, each one pulsing with captured light. Queen Seraphina stood before the largest mirror, a sheet of polished obsidian 15 feet tall, watching her daughter nearly tear reality apart in a middle school hallway. Her hands were clenched so tight that her fingernails drew blood from her palms. Silver blood. It dripped onto the marble floor and evaporated into mist. Your Majesty, High Counselor Thorne stepped forward, his purple robes sweeping the ground. We must extract the princess immediately. Her power is destabilizing. Silence. The word dropped like a stone into water. Thorne's mouth snapped shut. Seraphina watched the human janitor approach her daughter. A middle-aged man in a blue uniform, pushing a cart full of cleaning supplies. Ordinary. Unremarkable. Powerless. He pulled out a bottle of soap bubbles. Seraphina almost laughed. Almost. The sound would have been bitter enough to crack the mirrors. For 3 months, she'd sent her finest healers to stabilize Arya's magic. The girl's power had awakened early, far too early, and with catastrophic intensity. Every emotion sent shockwaves through the magical currents. Joy could make flowers bloom through concrete. Fear could shatter windows for 3 blocks. Anger could kill. They'd tried meditation crystals, binding spells, essence dampeners, ancient incantations that predated language itself. Nothing worked. Arya's magic rejected every attempt at control, grew wilder with each intervention. So Seraphina had done the unthinkable. She'd hidden her daughter in the human world, glamored to look like an ordinary child, with a trusted guardian to watch over her. Perhaps, she'd hoped, distance from the witch realm's concentrated magic would calm the girl's power naturally. It hadn't. And now this human, this janitor, was blowing soap bubbles at the future heir to the throne of the witch realm. The bubbles floated through the air. Arya's breathing slowed. The lights stopped flickering. Seraphina felt her throat close. She'd watched through the scrying mirrors every day, helpless, as her daughter suffered. Had seen Arya wake screaming from nightmares that made her bedroom furniture levitate. Had watched her eat lunch alone in the school cafeteria because the other children sensed something wrong about her, something other, even through the glamour. 3 months of agony. 3 months of failure. And this human fixed it in 90 seconds with children's toys and a soft voice.
Impossible. T'embêted.
He's not using any magic. Isensa nuting. No aura, no resonanza, no. I know he's not using, Seraphina said quietly. What matters is what he is doing. She watched the janitor crouch down, still blowing bubbles. Watched Arya reach out and pop one. The girl's face transformed, the terrible tension draining away, replaced by something fragile and precious.
Peace.
When had Serafina last seen her daughter at peace? Your Majesty, with respect, Counselor Thorne gestured to the assembled advisors behind him. The princess's power surges are growing stronger. Today's incident was mild, but the next could tear through the dimensional barriers. If humans discover magic exists, they won't. We cannot guarantee. I said they won't. Serafina turned from the mirror, and her advisors took an involuntary step back. Her eyes had gone completely silver, burning with light that made the crystals around them chime in resonance. What I want to know is how that man succeeded where our greatest minds failed. The advisors exchanged glances. Serafina paced the length of the chamber, her silk robes trailing behind her like smoke. He has no training, no power, no knowledge of what she truly is. Yet he calmed her. Perhaps Advisor Lyra, the youngest of the council, spoke hesitantly. Perhaps that's precisely why it worked. Everyone turned to stare at her. Lyra swallowed but continued. The princess has been surrounded by magic her entire life. Every attempt to help her has been another spell, another working, another force trying to shape her power. Maybe, she gestured to the mirror, where the janitor was now walking Arya down the hallway. Maybe she needed something simple. Something human. Silence fell across the chamber. Serafina returned to the mirror, watching the man talk to Arya about something mundane, his expression patient, kind, utterly unafraid. Her daughter listened with an attention she never gave to tutors or healers. Find out everything about him, Serafina said. Name, history, family. I want to know why he approached her when everyone else ran. And if he's a threat? Thorne asked. If he's somehow sensed the princess's true nature and means to exploit, then I'll handle it personally. Serafina's voice could have frozen fire. But I don't think he is. Your Majesty? She touched the mirror, and the image shifted to show the janitor's face more clearly. Tired eyes, worry lines, calloused hands. The face of someone who'd known loss. I think, Serafina said softly, he's just a father. Mark's apartment was on the third floor of a building that had been charming about 40 years ago. Now it was just old. The stairs creaked, the radiator clanked like it was trying to communicate in Morse code, and the kitchen faucet dripped no matter how many times he tightened it. But it was home. He unlocked the door at 11:47 p.m., exhausted down to his bones. Night shift at the school, then 4 hours at the warehouse. His back ached, and his feet felt like concrete blocks. Dad. Lily appeared in the hallway, still in her pajamas, the ones with the tiny robots. Her black hair stuck up in every direction. You're late. You said 11:30. I know, Bug. I'm sorry. Mark dropped his keys in the bowl by the door. Warehouse manager needed someone to stay for inventory. Mrs. Chun made dumplings. She saved you some. Lily grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the kitchen. She said you're too skinny. Their neighbor was convinced Mark was wasting away. Never mind that he was perfectly healthy. Mrs. Chun had made it her personal mission to fatten him up. Mark suspected she just missed having someone to cook for since her own kids moved to California. The dumplings were still warm, wrapped in foil on the stove. Mark's stomach growled. He'd eaten a granola bar 7 hours ago. How was school? He asked, sitting at their small table while Lily watched him eat. Boring. We had a substitute in math. She gave us a worksheet and just sat there staring at everyone. It was weird. Lily propped her chin on her hands. But Emma told me something crazy happened at the middle school today. Mark's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Yeah. Some girl went psycho in the hallway. Lights exploding, stuff flying around. Emma's brother said it was like a poltergeist or something. Lily's eyes were bright with curiosity. Were you there? Did you see it? Mark carefully set down his fork. Nothing flew around. A girl had a panic attack and some old light fixtures blew out. That building's electrical system is ancient, Emma's brother said. Emma's brother is in 7th grade. 7th graders exaggerate everything. Mark reached across and tapped her nose. Trust me, it wasn't that exciting. Lily studied him with the unnerving intensity only 10-year-olds could manage. You helped her, didn't you? The girl. How do you? Because that's what you do. Dad, she said it matter-of-factly, like stating the sky was blue. You help people. Mark felt something warm and painful expand in his chest. 3 years since Sarah died, and sometimes Lily said things that sounded so much like her mother that time seemed to fold in on itself. Somebody had to, he said quietly. Everyone else ran. Was she okay after? I think so. I hope so. Lily nodded, satisfied, then yawned so wide her jaw cracked. I'm going to bed. You should too. You look like a zombie. Thanks, Bug. She hugged him goodnight, quick and fierce, the way she always did, like she was afraid he might disappear, and padded back to her room. Mark finished the dumplings alone in the kitchen, listening to the building settle and the distant sound of traffic. Through the window, he could see the lights of the city, thousands of lives playing out in thousands of windows. He thought about Arya, the terror in her eyes, the way everyone had abandoned her in that hallway, like she was something dangerous instead of someone scared. His phone buzzed. A text from the school. Maintenance request. Room 214 needs new light fixtures. Can you handle it tomorrow? He replied, sure thing. Across town, in a house that was too big and too quiet, Arya lay awake in a bedroom that wasn't really hers. The bubble wand sat on her nightstand, still slightly damp. She'd been blowing bubbles for an hour after her guardian went to bed, watching them float up toward the ceiling and disappear. Each one felt like a small miracle. For those few seconds, her mind went quiet. The constant buzzing pressure of her power, always there, always pushing, faded to background noise. Her guardian, Mrs. Blackwood, had been furious when she got home from school. You drew attention, the woman had hissed, her glamour slipping slightly to show the sharp angles underneath. You were supposed to stay invisible, unremarkable. Do you understand what you've risked? I couldn't control it, Arya had whispered. Try harder. As if she hadn't been trying. As if every single day wasn't a battle to keep herself contained, to make sure she didn't accidentally hurt someone, to pretend she was normal when she could feel reality itself bending around her emotions. But today, for just a few minutes, it had been easy. Because of him. The janitor with the kind eyes and the silly bubbles. Arya pulled her blanket up to her chin. The bracelet on her wrist, her mother's last gift before she'd been sent away, felt warm against her skin. She didn't know it was a conduit. Didn't know that everything she experienced was being transmitted to another world. She only knew that tonight, for the first time in months, she felt almost safe. Outside her window, a figure watched from the shadows. The substitute teacher from school, still wearing human form, patient and alert, protecting the girl, and watching the janitor who'd done the impossible. The school library smelled like old paper and lemon polish. Mark found it oddly comforting, one of the few places in the building that felt lived in rather than institutional. He was supposed to be fixing a leaking pipe under the sink in the back corner. Instead, he was trying to figure out why he could hear crying.
Soft.
Muffled. Coming from behind the reference section. Mark set down his wrench and walked quietly between the shelves. The library was technically closed Wednesday afternoon. The librarian had left early for a dentist appointment. Whoever was back there was hiding. He found Arya wedged between the wall and a bookshelf marked World History, her knees pulled up to her chest, face buried in her arms. The bubble wand stuck out of her backpack pocket. Hey, Mark said gently. She jerked up, eyes red and swollen. I wasn't. It's okay. You're not in trouble. He crouched down, keeping some distance. Rough day. Arya wiped her face with her sleeve. Every day is rough.
Yeah.
I know that feeling. She looked at him like she didn't quite believe an adult could understand. Do you? My daughter has anxiety. Bad days, good days, really bad days. Sometimes it feels like you're carrying something too heavy and you can't ever put it down. Mark pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket and offered it. That sound about right. Arya took it, nodding. Fresh tears spilled over. Everyone's scared of me. They won't say it, but I can tell. They think her voice cracked. They think I'm dangerous. You're not dangerous. You don't know that the words came out bitter. You don't know anything about me. I know you're 11 years old and crying in a library because you feel alone. I know you were terrified on Monday and you didn't hurt anyone even though you could have run, could have lashed out. You just froze. Mark's voice stayed steady, calm. That's not dangerous. That's scared. There's a difference. Arya stared at him. Everybody needs to just leave me alone. It's safer. Maybe. Or maybe everybody needs help sometimes, and that doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you human. The lights above them flickered. Mark noticed at this time the way the fluorescence pulsed in rhythm with Arya's breathing, which was getting faster again. The air felt thick, charged, like right before a thunderstorm. Hey, he kept his voice level.
Arya.
Look at me. She did, and her eyes were wild with panic. It's happening again. I can't stop it. The books on the nearest shelf rattled. A globe on a nearby table started spinning on its own. Mark reached into his maintenance cart. He'd started carrying the bubble solution with him, just in case, and pulled out the bottle. He didn't question why. Didn't overthink it. He just blew. Bubbles streamed out, catching the afternoon light from the tall windows. They drifted between him and Arya, slow and hypnotic. But something was different this time. The bubbles shimmered. Not just the normal rainbow refraction. These glowed from within, pulsing with soft colors that shouldn't exist. Violet bleeding into silver, gold threading through emerald green. Beautiful and impossible.
Arya gasped.
The rattling stopped. Mark kept blowing, though his hands had started shaking. The bubbles responded to her. He could see it now, could see them brighten when her breathing hitched and dim when she calmed. Like they were connected to her somehow. This wasn't normal. None of this was normal. But Arya was watching the bubbles with desperate focus, and her panic was receding, so Mark kept going. Pick one, he said softly. Just one. Follow it with your eyes. She tracked a large bubble that seemed to hold entire galaxies in its surface. It floated in a lazy spiral upward. Breathe with it, Mark continued. In when it rises, out when it falls. Arya's chest moved in time with the bubble's drift. The strange glow faded gradually until they were just normal bubbles again, soap and water and light. The library settled into stillness. How do you do that?
Arya whispered.
Do what? Make it stop. Make it quiet. She touched her chest. Make me quiet. I don't know, Mark admitted. I just know it helps my daughter when things get too loud in her head. Figured it might help you too. Across the library, partially hidden behind a display of student artwork, the substitute teacher, Ms. Vale, she'd introduced herself as, watched with an expression of absolute shock. She was no teacher. She was Captain Alara of the Queen's Guard, sent to observe and assess the human who'd interfered with the princess. She'd expected to find a threat, perhaps a rogue witch or a human who'd stumbled onto forbidden knowledge. Instead, she was watching a janitor create spontaneous magical resonance with nothing but soap bubbles and genuine compassion.
Impossible.
Humans couldn't channel magic. They didn't have the ability, the training, the bloodline. And yet the bubbles had responded to the princess's power, had somehow absorbed and reflected it back in a calming pattern that Alara had only seen master healers achieve after decades of study. She touched the communication crystal hidden in her collar. The queen needed to know. This changed everything. The war chamber was carved from a single piece of black marble, its walls inscribed with the names of every battle the witch realm had ever fought. Most were ancient, wars against demons, against rival covens, against things that no longer had names. But the newest inscription glowed red. The Fracture War. Still ongoing. Still killing witches every day. High General Mordain slammed his fist on the obsidian table. The princess's power surges are creating rifts in the barriers. Yesterday, a tear opened over the human city of Prague. We had to deploy 3 containment teams to seal it before humans noticed. Queen Seraphina stood at the head of the table, her expression carved from ice. Casualties?
None.
This time Mordain's scarred face twisted. But the rebel covens are watching. They know the princess is unstable. They're waiting for a big enough rupture to launch a full invasion through the human world. Counselor Thorne unrolled a map that showed both realms simultaneously, a dizzying overlay of two worlds occupying the same space. Red marks dotted the surface where Aria's power had created weak points. The barrier between worlds has held for 3,000 years, Thorne said. It was designed to keep magic contained, to prevent exactly this kind of dimensional bleeding. But the princess's power signature is unlike anything we've recorded. When she loses control, she doesn't just generate magic, she warps reality itself.
Serafina studied the map.
Each red mark felt like an accusation. Show me Monday's incident. Thorne waved his hand, and an illusion bloomed above the table, a three-dimensional recreation of the school hallway. Aria frozen in panic, power radiating from her in visible waves. The lights exploding, reality stretching thin. Then the janitor appeared, blowing bubbles. The gathered council watched in silence as the power waves stabilized, smoothed, absorbed into those shimmering bubbles like water into sand. Impossible, General Mordain breathed. He's doing combat-level resonance magic without a single incantation. He's not doing magic, Captain Alara spoke from her position by the door. She'd returned from the human world an hour ago, still wearing her substitute teacher disguise. I've observed him for 3 days.
No aura. No magical signature.
No training whatsoever. Then how? I don't know. Alara stepped forward, and her glamour dissolved, revealing her true form, tall, angular, with silver hair braided for battle. But I've seen him calm 2 separate power surges now. The bubbles react to the princess's magic instinctively, creating a feedback loop that grounds her without suppression. It's not control. It's harmony. Advisor Lyra leaned forward. Your Majesty, there's a prophecy. An old one. Most scholars dismissed it as metaphor, but she pulled a leather-bound book from her robes, pages yellowed with age. It speaks of a mortal anchor. When the bridge between worlds trembles, a powerless hand shall steady what magic cannot hold. Feritales, Mordainskoft. We need solutions, not bedtime stories. Prophecies are history that hasn't happened yet, Serafina said quietly. She touched the illusion, freezing it on Mark's face. Ordinary, tired, kind. What else does it say? Lyra read. The anchor shall be tested by those who fear change. His survival shall determine if worlds unite or shatter. Choose wisely who guards him, for enemies gather in shadows. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Enemies, Serafina repeated. The rebel covens? Among others, Thorne's expression was grim. High Priestess Malachar has been gathering support. She believes the princess should be eliminated before her power destroys us all. She calls it mercy. She calls it politics. Serafina's eyes flashed silver. She wants the throne. She has followers. Powerful ones. Thorne pulled up another map, this one showing the Witch Realm's territories. Nearly a third were marked in purple, Malachar's influence. If she learns about this human, about his connection to the princess, she'll kill him, Captain Alara finished. Publicly. To prove the princess is too dangerous to rule. Silence fell across the chamber. General Mordain cleared his throat. Your Majesty, with respect, perhaps that would solve 2 problems. Without the human, we return the princess here, contain her power through traditional means. By binding her? Serafina's voice could have cut diamond. By suppressing her magic until she's a hollow shell? My daughter is not a problem to be solved, General. She is the future of this realm. A future that may not exist if she tears reality apart. Serafina turned away from them, staring at the wall of names. So many wars. So much blood. And now her daughter, her brilliant, terrified daughter, had become a weapon that everyone wanted to either use or destroy. But this janitor, this tired single father with his ridiculous bubbles, he'd looked at Arya and seen a scared child, not a threat. Had helped without expecting anything in return. When had anyone in this realm done something without calculating the cost? Captain Alara, Serafina said. I'm sending you back. Full protection detail. The janitor doesn't leave your sight. And if Malakar's agents are already there, then you make sure they never get close. Serafina turned, and her face held the expression that had won her 3 wars. Because if that man dies, I will personally burn Malakar's territory to ash. The council bowed. But after they left, Serafina returned to the scrying mirror alone. She pulled up the image of Mark walking his daughter to school that morning, their hands linked, both laughing at something. Please, she whispered to the glass. Please be what she needs. What we all need. The mirror showed no answers. Only a human who didn't know he'd become the most important person in 2 worlds. Friday afternoon arrived with unseasonable darkness. Clouds rolled in thick and fast, turning the sky the color of old bruises. The kind of weather that made animals nervous and children restless. Mark was replacing the light fixtures in room 214 when the fire alarm shrieked to life. Not the regular fire drill tone. The emergency one, sharp, piercing, designed to trigger immediate evacuation. Students poured into the hallways, teachers shouting instructions, everyone moving toward the exits in practiced chaos. Mark climbed down from his ladder, confused. This wasn't on the schedule. Principal Hayes always notified him about drills. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in eerie red. Through the windows, Mark saw lightning fork across the sky, not the normal kind. This lightning was wrong, moving in spirals, hanging in the air too long. His radio crackled. All staff, this is not a drill. Severe weather event. Full evacuation protocol. Get everyone to the basement shelters immediately. Mark's stomach clenched.
Lily.
She was at the elementary school 6 blocks away. He grabbed his phone, no signal. The storm was interfering with everything. He started toward the exit, then heard it. Screaming. High and terrified. Coming from above. The roof access. Mark ran for the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. His radio crackled with more warnings, voices overlapping in panic. Something about structural damage. Something about the weather being impossible. The roof door was open, banging in the wind. Mark burst through and was immediately hit by a wall of air that nearly threw him backward. The roof had become the center of a localized tornado, wind spiraling up from Arya like she was the eye of a hurricane. She knelt in the center, sobbing, her hands pressed against her ears. Around her, pieces of debris lifted and spun, roof tiles, gravel, a metal vent cover. The air crackled with electricity. Her hair whipped around her face, standing on end.
Arya.
Mark shouted, but the wind tore his voice away. Mrs. Blackwood was there too, pressed against the roof access housing, her glamour flickering on and off. Stay back, she screamed at Mark. You can't help her. But Mark was already moving forward, leaning into the wind. It was like walking through water, every step a battle. The debris spun faster, creating a barrier. A chunk of concrete whizzed past his head, missing by inches. He didn't stop. Arya looked up as he got closer, and her eyes were pure white. No pupils, no iris, just light pouring out. I can't stop it, she cried. I tried, but the alarm, the noise, it was too much. Mark understood. Sudden loud noises. Chaos. Just like Lily's triggers, but magnified by power that could crack reality. A piece of rebar spun toward his chest. Mark ducked, felt it graze his shoulder, kept moving. Mr. Chen, stop. That was a different voice, Ms. Vale, the substitute teacher, appearing from behind the roof access. She looked different now, taller somehow, her edges sharper. You'll be killed. Then help me. Mark shouted back. He was 5 feet from Arya now. The wind was screaming. Lightning struck the roof, so close he smelled ozone. His maintenance cart had blown up here somehow. He could see it tumbling in the vortex, including the bubble solution. Mark lunged for it, grabbed the bottle as it spun past. The cap was already off. He raised it to his lips, praying this would work, praying he wasn't about to die on a middle school roof. He blew. The wind ripped the bubbles apart immediately. Mark blew again, harder, creating a constant stream. Some bubbles survived. They caught in the wind, spinning through the vortex. And where they touched the currents of Aria's power, they glowed, bright enough to see even in the storm.
Arya.
Mark shouted. Pick one. Just one bubble. Follow it. She couldn't hear him. The wind was too loud. So Mark did something insane. He stepped directly into the vortex. The power hit him like a physical thing, trying to tear him apart. He felt his ribs compress, his lungs struggling for air. But he planted his feet and blew bubbles directly at Aria's face.
Pick one.
Bubble. Her white eyes focused on him, on the bubbles floating between them, glowing like small suns. Follow it, Mark gasped. Breathe with it. One bubble, larger than the rest, shimmering with impossible colors, drifted upward in a slow spiral despite the chaos around it. Aria's eyes tracked it. In when it rises, Mark said, his voice barely audible. Out when it falls.
Arya, breathe in.
The bubble rose. She breathed out. It descended. The wind began to slow. Mark kept blowing bubbles, kept his voice steady even though he was shaking so hard his teeth chattered. That's it. You've got it. Just keep breathing. The debris started falling. First the smaller pieces, then the larger ones, clattering to the roof. The lightning faded. The unnatural darkness began to lift. Aria's eyes returned to normal, brown and terrified and human. She collapsed forward, and Mark caught her, wrapping his arms around her as she sobbed into his chest. The bubble wand clattered to the roof beside them. I've got you, Mark whispered. You're okay. You're safe. Behind them, Captain Alara stood frozen in shock. She'd been ready to die defending this human, had expected to fail. Instead, she'd watched him walk into a magical storm that would have killed a master witch and calm it with nothing but bubbles and stubborn compassion. The prophecy was a metaphor. It was happening right now. The world stopped. Not metaphorically. Time itself froze. Raindrops hung suspended in midair, clouds locked in place, the distant sound of sirens cutting off mid-wail. Mark felt it like pressure against his eardrums. He was still holding Arya, but everything around them had become a photograph. Then the air in front of them began to crack. Not breaking, cracking, like glass under stress, spiderweb fractures appearing in empty space. Light bled through the breaks, too bright, the wrong color. Silver and violet, and something that hurt to look at. Oh no, Arya whispered against his chest.
No, no, no.
The cracks spread wider. The air shattered. A woman stepped through. Mark's brain struggled to process what he was seeing. She was tall, maybe 6 feet, with silver hair that moved like it was underwater, flowing against gravity. Her skin had an iridescent quality, shifting between pale and luminous. She wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight and shadows woven together. But it was her eyes that made Mark's breath catch. The same brown as Aria's. Warm and terrified and fierce. Behind her, the rift widened, and armed figures poured through, warriors in silver armor, carrying weapons that crackled with energy. They fanned out across the roof in perfect formation, surrounding Mark and Arya. Mom. Arya tried to pull away, but Mark held on.
Mom.
Captain Alara dropped to one knee immediately, head bowed. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. The woman, the queen, moved forward with inhuman grace. Power radiated from her like heat from a furnace. Mark felt it pressing against his skin, testing him, weighing him. Every instinct screamed at him to run. He didn't move. Release my daughter, the queen said. Her voice was like music and thunder combined. Are you going to hurt her? Mark asked. His voice shook, but he met her eyes. Shocked silence rippled through the assembled warriors. Captain Alara's head snapped up, horror on her face. Even Arya made a small, frightened sound. The queen stared at him. What did you say? I asked if you're going to hurt her. Mark's heart was trying to punch through his ribs, but he kept his arms around Arya. Because she's terrified right now, and I won't let anyone hurt her. I don't care who you are. One of the warriors moved forward, weapon raised. You dare address the queen? The queen raised one hand. The warrior froze mid-step. She moved closer until she was 3 feet away, studying Mark like he was a puzzle. You're standing between a witch queen and her daughter. Do you understand what that means? It means I'm probably about to die, Mark said. But she's a kid. And she's scared. So yeah, I'm standing here. The queen's expression flickered. Surprise, confusion, something that might have been pain. You don't know what she is. What she can do. I know she's 11 years old. I know she has panic attacks. I know everyone abandons her when she needs help most. Mark's voice grew stronger. And I know she deserves better than that. Arya was crying again, silently, her face still pressed against his shoulder. The queen closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were bright with unshed tears. I sent her away to protect her. The magic in our realm was making her power worse. I thought the human world would be calmer, safer, her voice cracked. I thought I was saving her. You were, Arya whispered. Mom, you were trying. I failed. The queen looked at her daughter. Really looked, and Mark saw the raw anguish in her face. You've suffered alone for months while I watched through mirrors, helpless. And this human, this stranger, has done more for you in 4 days than I managed in 11 years. She turned her gaze back to Mark.
How?
I don't know, Mark admitted. I've been where she is. My daughter has anxiety. Bad days where the world is too loud and everything hurts. You can't fix it with force. You just have to make them feel safe. Safe, the queen said the word like it was foreign. You made her feel safe. I tried. The queen was quiet for a long moment. Around them, time remained frozen, the world holding its breath. Then she did something that made every warrior tense. She knelt. A witch queen, kneeling before a human janitor on a middle school roof. You calmed the future heir of the witch realm without magic, she said softly. Without training. Without even knowing what you were doing. Not even our strongest healers, our most ancient mages, could do what you've done. She looked up at him, vulnerable and desperate. Human, I need to know. Why did you help her? What do you want in return? Mark blinked. Want? Nothing. She needed help. Nothing. She's a kid. That's enough. The queen stared at him like he'd spoken an alien language. Behind her, Captain Alara's expression was equally stunned. Your Majesty, Alara said quietly. The prophecy. He's the anchor. The queen stood slowly.
Yes.
I believe he is. She looked at Mark with an intensity that made him feel transparent. What's your name?
Mark.
Mark Chen. Mark Chen, she said it carefully, like a vow. I am Queen Seraphina of the Witch Realm. And I need your help. With what? With saving both our worlds. The space between worlds looked like someone had painted the universe in watercolors and forgotten to let it dry. Colors bled into each other. Aurora greens melting into twilight purples, gold threading through midnight blue. Mark stood on what appeared to be a bridge made of solid light, stretching into infinity in both directions. Below them, or above them, perspective was meaningless here. 2 worlds overlapped like double-exposed photographs. He could see the school roof on one side, and on the other, a crystalline city with towers that defied geometry. His head hurt trying to process it. Dad. Mark spun. Lily was running toward him across the bridge, Mrs. Chun huffing behind her, holding Lily's backpack. Lily? What? How? The Queen's guards brought us. Lily crashed into him, hugging him fiercely. They said you needed me. They said it was important. Mrs. Chun nodded, surprisingly calm for someone who'd just been transported between dimensions. The nice silver lady explained. Some of it. Most of it went over my head, but I gathered you're in trouble and need backup. She patted his arm. So here we are. Mark looked at Seraphina, who stood nearby with Arya. You brought my daughter here? I brought your family, Seraphina corrected. Because what I'm about to ask affects all of you, and I won't make you choose without them present. She gestured, and the bridge shifted, creating a circular platform with chairs that grew from the light itself.
Please. Seat.
They sat Mark, Lily, Mrs. Chun on one side, Serafina, and Arya on the other. Captain Alara stood guard at the bridge's edge. I'm going to be honest, Serafina began. Arya's power is tearing holes in reality. Every surge creates weak points that enemies can exploit. There's a civil war brewing in my realm, and rebels who would use those weak points to invade your world. She looked at Mark. You're the only one who can calm her. The only one who creates the resonance needed to stabilize her magic. The bubbles aren't magic. They're you, Serafina leaned forward. Your presence, your calm, your intention. Somehow it harmonizes with her power in a way nothing else can. We think you're what the old prophecies called an anchor. A human who can bridge the gap between magic and mortality. Lily's hand found Mark's. What does that mean? It means I'm offering your father a choice. Serafina's voice was gentle. Option 1. I can erase the last week from everyone's memories. You'll return to your normal lives. Arya will come back to the witch realm, and we'll find another way to handle her power. You'll be safe, protected, free. And Arya? Mark asked quietly. Serafina's mask cracked. Will be bound. Her power suppressed through spells that will leave her diminished, but alive. And the worlds will be kept separate, as they've been for millennia. Arya stared at her hands, tears dripping onto her lap. What's option 2? Lily asked. Option 2 is complicated. Serafina stood, pacing the platform. Mark comes with us. Becomes Arya's anchor officially. Learning to help her control her power, bridging the gap between our peoples. But it means danger. The rebels will target him. There will be assassination attempts, political intrigue, battles. And anyone close to him becomes a target too. Mrs. Chen made a thoughtful noise. So, you're asking if he'll risk his life to save a little girl he barely knows. I'm asking if he'll help prevent a war, Serafina said. But yes, that's what it comes down to. Mark looked at Arya, small and scared and trying so hard to be brave. Then at Lily, who was watching him with absolute trust. Finally at Mrs. Chen, who'd been more family than neighbor since Sarah died. If I say no, he said slowly, you'll bind Arya's power. Make her less than she is. Yes. And the war? Will likely happen anyway. We'll just fight it without you. Mark ran a hand through his hair. This was insane. A week ago, his biggest problem was a leaky pipe. Now he was choosing between safety and saving worlds. But then he thought about Monday. About every kid who'd run away from Arya while she stood there terrified and alone. He thought about Lily's panic attacks and how much it meant when someone stayed. Dad, Lily said quietly. You always tell me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means helping people even when you are scared. Mark laughed, shaky and slightly hysterical. I tell you that, huh? All the time. She squeezed his hand. Sometimes people need us. Those were Sarah's words. She'd said them the day she'd told him about her cancer, about the experimental treatment she wanted to try. Sometimes people need us to be brave for them. Mark looked at Serafina. If we do this, I need guarantees. Lily's safety is non-negotiable. She goes to school, has a normal life, doesn't become a target. Done, Serafina said immediately. I'll assign guards. The best. And, Mrs. Chen. I'm coming, Mrs. Chen interrupted. Someone needs to make sure you all eat properly. Magic or no magic, you're still too skinny. Mark blinked. You can't just watch me. She crossed her arms. Besides, I've been bored since my husband passed. This sounds interesting. Serafina's lips twitched. I like her. Mark turned to Arya. What do you want? The girl looked up, shocked. Me? It's your life. Your power. What do you want? Arya glanced at her mother, then back at Mark. I want to stop being afraid all the time. I want to stop hurting people. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I want to be able to breathe. Mark stood, walked across the platform, held out his hand to Arya. Then let's figure this out. Together. Arya took his hand. Serafina's breath caught. You're sure? The queen asked. There's no going back. I'm sure, Mark pulled Arya up and Lily immediately came over, linking her arm through Arya's other side. We're sure. Serafina's eyes blazed silver with emotion. Then the future of two worlds begins today. She raised her hands, and the bridge began to shift, solidifying into something permanent. A path between realms that hadn't existed before. Welcome, Serafina said, to your new life, Mark Chen. Anchor.
Bridge.
Father to the future queen. Mark looked at Lily on one side, Arya on the other. Mrs. Chen already arguing with Captain Alara about kitchen arrangements in whatever palace they were heading to. His life was about to become impossibly complicated. But as Arya squeezed his hand, her breathing calm and steady, Mark thought maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what was supposed to happen. After all, sometimes people needed you. And sometimes you needed them right back.